Hey guys, I want to show you how you can make art out of everything that you possibly have around your house. How you can do art with stuff besides paint, but you can make your own paints. So I call this project Anything But. So that means you can use anything but regular art materials. So that means no paint, no colored pencils. You could use markers only to make colors, but we'll get to that. So I'm going to show you all different types of materials that you might have around your house that you can use to make your own paint. So let's get started. All right, first let's talk about some of the things that I got. I have my paper that I'm going to be testing out my paints on. I do have a paintbrush. This is a place where I'm just going to be mixing my colors on. This is called a palette paper. You could use anything to mix your paints on. You could use a plate, use a plastic bag. You can use whatever you want. This is just what I'm going to be mixing my stuff on. What's nice is that the water can't get through it. It's very similar to like wax paper, so maybe check out your kitchen, see if you have some of that you could use. I also have a large container of water, so that way I can water down my different colors. And then let's talk about the materials that I have that we can use. Some of them make a lot of sense right off the bat. Some of them are a little more confusing. Let's start with some easy ones. Food coloring. Chances are a lot of you guys have some food coloring at home. So food coloring can work really great because it's already a color, right? I mean, it's already a dye. And food coloring is super concentrated. So that means if I poured some of this out, it's going to be a really bright and bold color right away. But I can also water it down so I can make different values. And that's going to be key here with all of our different ingredients. Think of them like you're making your own watercolors. With watercolors, the more water you add, the lighter it's going to be. The less water, the darker. So let's try out some food coloring first. I'm just going to put down a drop. I'm going to use green. Okay. So what I advise doing, get your paintbrush and get a little wet first. I got my clean water over here. This one on this side is going to be my dirty water for rinsing from here on out. My advice would be do a little experiment with your colors first before you try to make a piece of art. See what you're actually capable of. So I'm going to start first with my food coloring and see what it shows without any water added. Ooh, that is nice and bold. That's really cool. That's straight up like a color. Now the downside to this is food coloring tends to come in little containers, so you're definitely going to want to water this out. Now I'm just going to be using a food dropper or eyedropper for this, but you could pour water into whatever you're mixing. You could use a little spoon. I'm just doing this to make my life easier, make life smaller, so I don't make as big a mess. So I'm going to get some water and I'm going to mix it in, a couple drops. Let's mix it into it. Now I want to test and see if my color is any different. A little bit more see-through. So what I'm going to do for each color is add a little bit of water, mix it in, and paint it to see how it looks. Now I'm seeing that the food color stays really vibrant even though I'm adding quite a bit of water to it. Wow, that's really impressive. So a little bit of food coloring could really go a long way. This could be a great option if you're wanting some really bright and bold colors. Okay, so I could keep going with food coloring, adding more and more water till I get to super light values. But let's move on. That one's a pretty straightforward, easy one to understand. So food coloring is a great option for colors. You saw I literally just put a drop of food coloring down, and I've already made so much paint that I could paint something huge with this. Let's try a different material. All right, so when I was looking around my pantry, I was trying to find other things that were bright and bold in colors, but not going to be too sticky or hard to work with. Now my thought was, what about juices like Kool-Aid and things like that, fruit punches? They're really bright, bold colors. Now I don't have any Kool-Aid, but I do have this Mio, which is a really concentrated flavor that you put into water. So I was thinking, well, if this is really concentrated flavor, it's probably really concentrated color as well. So let's try out a little bit of this. See if it'll, ooh, that squeezes out really fast. Gotta be careful with that. Now, obviously, depending on the flavor that you have for your juice, it's going to be different colors. This one happens to be a fruit punch flavor, so we can see, ooh, that gets a really bold one as well. And this one has a smell to it. You know, art can be more than just the sense of sight. It could be sense of smell, sense of touch, so many other things. So this could work really well because it is a bright, bold color, and it adds to the senses of smell and all that. Now, a downside to the juices is if it already has sugar added in, it's definitely going to become sticky. Could be an issue with animals as well. You don't want them literally eating your art project. But as you can see, you can get a bright, bold color. Possibly for some little highlights, this might be a great idea. Now, the color is not as concentrated as the food dye was, so it definitely lightened up a lot faster. But still, a great option, and oh man, it smells so good. All right, let's try something different now. We could make some watercolors using markers. Let's see, where my markers go? So we could try out markers. Now, we're not going to be coloring like these like normal. Instead, we're going to be making a watercolor from it. So if you watched my video earlier in the week that showed how to do watercolor prints and use watercolors to make paintings that way, that could kind of follows that same idea. But let's kind of review it real fast. Now this one, I can use this on a plastic bag, or my paint palette, since again it's kind of waxy, I'm going to use it on here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my color of my marker and I'm going to draw down a little pile of it. Now I'm going to use the water to hydrate this a bit. And I don't want to double dip. I'm going to add a bit more water to it. So that water picked up all the color from the marker and was able to give me color. Now this is definitely a lot lighter color already because I had to add so much water to it. But you could easily make colors just out of the markers and materials you already have. Could be a great way to fill in a space for color. Another thing you have an option of doing is when your markers run out, don't just throw them away. There's so much extra color inside of them that you wouldn't even realize. So when your markers run out, you can make your own watercolor paints. What you want to do is when they're all dry, or when you think they're dry, you take the lid off and you literally put it into a little container and about an inch or two of water. Now the more of these you can put in that's the same type of color, the more bold it's going to be, but you let that marker sit in the cup of water for a couple days. And you'll notice that the water will start to change the color because the ink, the dye, is coming out of the marker because there's still a lot left in there that you don't realize. And that's going to color the water for you and make some paints. So next time you run out of markers, stick it in a little container of water and make your own paint. All right, so there was marker. Now let's get into some weirder options, shall we? First, how about makeup? If you or your mom or anybody like that is like me, you might have some really old makeup from a while ago that you're not using anymore because they're funky colors, but you can use it for art. Now, you don't have to mix any water in with these. You could literally just take your finger and get some color. Now, these are definitely going to be a lot powdery of colors because these are eyeshadows that I'm using. Did you know that back when the animators of Disney were making the very first Snow White, that the illustrators couldn't get the color on her cheeks to be just right? She looked very pale. The women in the art department at the time said, hey, why don't we just take our actual blush and put it straight onto the drawings? It worked amazing, and that's what they ended up using in the videos. So try out different colors, see what you might have. Some of them you might even be able to take just a wet paintbrush, paint on top of it, and see if you can get any color that way. That's definitely going to get a brighter, bolder color. Wouldn't do that with those expensive makeup palettes, but that could be an interesting option to get some different colors for you. Another makeup option is lipstick. Lipstick is really pigmented, and it usually is more oil-based. Now this is just a little freebie sample I got a while ago that I don't really use, but I could take this lipstick, it's a liquid type, and I could put a little bit down on my palette. And I could use this to paint with. So I could take the color straight off the palette, and it's going to be a lot more brighter, bolder, but it's also going to be harder to paint because it is oil-based. the oil in the lipstick and the water on the brush are not going to want to mix together. So just adding water to this might not work as easily. Instead, you could get a little bit of vegetable oil from your kitchen and mix that into the lipstick. Since they're both oil-based, they're going to mix together, and that's going to thin out the lipstick for you, and you could paint with it instead. So if you find that something's not working well mixing with water, it's because it's probably oil-based. So you need to mix it with a clear oil, or as clear as you can be. I recommend canola oil, vegetable oil, something like that. Now this is also going to get into your paintbrushes a lot more, because since the oil and the water don't like to mix, it doesn't like to clean your brush. So you gotta put a little bit more effort when it comes into cleaning. So I'm gonna have to take a paper towel and really work to get the colors out of this. Okay. Alright, so we got makeup as an option. You know, depending on your lipstick or something like that, maybe it's an old color that nobody used. You might be able just to straight up put the lipstick onto the project. Smear it straight on that way. Think of it like a crayon. You probably did it when you were a toddler and made your mom real mad then. Maybe ask permission. Not maybe. Ask permission first if you're using somebody else's makeup for art. Okay, so now let's go into different food options. Now this is weird. You might want to check out your spice cabinet. Spices are from plants, right? Think back to the cave artists from hundreds and thousands of years ago. They made their paints out of stuff that they found in nature. Those spices and things they found in nature are now in our kitchen cabinets. So you could create your own color out of some spices. Think about ones that have bright colors already. Like I'm going to try out curry. Now I'm not sure if this smell is going to go well with my fruit punch smell from the drink, but the curry has this really bright yellow ochre color, which could be really cool for painting. So I'm going to put down a little pile of my curry powder. I know this sounds so weird. I'm going to take some water and I'm going to mix into it. Now for this, I'm not going to mix with my brush because I want to make sure it mixes well. I really don't want my brush to smell like curry for a long time. So for mixing, you could try a Q-tip or something like that, even your finger. Now mixing paints with spices is going to give a little extra added texture because the spice isn't going to dissolve in the water, but some of that color will come off. So I can show you some little tiny ones. You know what? I'll just use my paintbrush. I'll wash it well afterwards. You can get some color off of these. Now, the more the water and the herb or spice sit together, the better the color is going to be. Now, this is definitely going to be a more grainy option because the bits of spices don't dissolve, but you can get some extra little highlights of color there. And again, adding a smell to your piece. This curry, ooh, it's making me hungry. Just make sure if you're using a paintbrush, again, wash it really well afterwards. I'm gonna let that one sit for a while and come back later, see if I can get a different color off of it because the water has been sitting in the spices for longer. You could try out other spices, think about different colors that the spices are, what could work. Maybe curry powder or nutmeg. Turmeric works really well because that's a bright yellow color. Maybe if you happen to have saffron, although saffron's a pretty expensive herb, you might not want to take that one without permission. But try your spice cabinet for different options. What about drinks? Now we tried kind of the Kool-Aid, but a great option that you can find lots of art is coffee. Okay, take the leftover coffee from the morning that your parents didn't drink and make some watercolors out of that. Or if you happen to be like me, I have some instant coffee or instant espresso. This will allow me to make the colors the proportions that I want them to be. So, let's see. Mine has kind of congealed together, so I gotta mix it up. Ooh, mine's been sitting in my cabinet for a while. It's kind of a hard piece, so I gotta break it apart a little bit. That's okay. So just like the spice, I'm going to pour out some of my color. If you have coffee that's already made, just use it as a watercolor. More water you add, the lighter it is. If you're like me and you're doing an instant coffee powder, you gotta add the water to it. And then the longer you let the color sit with the water, longer you let the coffee powder sit with the water, the brighter, the bolder your color is going to be. So with this one, I'm just going to mix it in. And since this was instant coffee powder, it's making a bright, bold color already, even though it hasn't been long. If you're using just regular coffee grounds, it's going to take a bit longer. Think about how long does it take for the coffee to percolate and make in the coffee maker. That's probably how long it's going to take for it to sit. But if I try this, it gives me a bold, bright brown color right away. I've actually done a couple paintings with coffees. It's one of my favorite materials to work with that's not a regular art material. So try it out. Add different amounts of water to it to change your value. Coffee is a great option for colors. You see how it got a bit lighter there because there was more water with it. I love painting with coffee. I love drinking coffee. I love anything to do with coffee, honestly. Now to go with that same idea, what if you had some extra tea, right? Tea has something in it called tannin. So again, it's just the leaves. Think back, anything that's natural, those cavemen probably made some art off it, and cavewomen. But we can make stuff off it ourselves. So this is some leftover tea that I have. It's gone cold, I'm not going to drink it. I can use this liquid as my paint. Now, since I have a pretty full cup of water right here with my tea in it, it is a super light color. It's not very dark. So what I would suggest doing is take those tea bags and take them and squeeze them out so it's less water. Maybe let that tea bag sit in that tiny puddle for a lot longer. So the tea is absorbing into a smaller amount of water, which will make the colors brighter and bolder. So tea could be a great option as well. But they definitely start out light. That one's going to take some more time and patience to make some better colors. Now, my last option for you, it's going to seem weird at first. No, it's going to seem weird the whole time. What about dirt? Right? Mud can create some beautiful colors. You know, you need some natural colors in your paintings. You can't make everything bright and bold. You gotta have some basic colors. So what if we took some water, mixed it into our dirt, made some mud? The mud will be a great thing to paint with as well. Now, try out dirt from different areas. You might find different colors show up. Think about it like clay. There's all different colors of clay because there's all different types of dirt out there. So just like our spices, the mud paint is definitely going to be a bit chunkier. But I'll show you mine when I'm all done at the end. This made a totally different color brown than the spices did or than the coffee. This made a lot deeper brown. Try out different dirt in yard. What about the dirt underneath your grass compared to the dirt in the garden? I bet you they look different. Bet you they make different colors. So you'd be amazed what sort of things you can make paints out of with stuff you find around your house. So here is how all the colors turned out. I wanted to give you a better view of everything. So we see all the way over here is we have food coloring with different amounts of water. Then we have some fruit punch mix, maybe Kool-Aid, something like that. Different amounts of water. I took the marker and created my own watercolor. I got some eyeshadow that I just smeared on. With lipstick, I tried both some liquid lipstick and some classic lipstick. Got some instant coffee, curry powder, some tea, and then some dirt. So I challenge you, make a piece of art not using any classic art materials. You know, if you use the markers to make a paint, I'll let that one slide. But check out your kitchen pantry. See what you can do. See what you can be to be creative. You might make some beautiful smelling art. It might end up looking really cool. Be sure to show me what you guys make.